Hey everybody, welcome back to The Takeover. Today is another one of those special episodes where I'm joined again by my father, Wayne Johnson. Dad, thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Glad to be back.
So today I figured, when this show is going to be airing, it'll be right around mid-October. And I thought that what would be cool is if we got together today and we talked a little bit about strategic planning. Because I know a lot of leadership teams out there are thinking about what are we going to do for our strategic planning, where are we meeting, who's coming, what are we hoping to get out of it. And this is a fun time of year. I've always been a fan of strategic planning because I like to live in the future and I like to think about the things that we can accomplish, and I like to set goals. And I know a lot of you out there are similar to me in that regard. And I thought this would be a fun conversation to just pick your brain about what you think makes a good strategic planning meeting, and also the role that your leadership team plays in strategic planning. So the way that I figured I'd roll with this today is I got some questions about strategic planning, and we'll kind of explore that together. Like what does a good meeting look like? And then we'll talk about the role of leadership. And I know that you have a great leadership team, allows you to go off and take a vacation and not worry about it too much. And that's a real blessing. And I think folks out there would like to know, how do you do that?
Right.
So let's jump in with some of the first questions here. So right off the gate, let's just start real simple because I don't want to assume anything. What is strategic planning to you, and what are some of the things that you hope to get out of it?
So for us, strategic planning is that opportunity to get away and work on the business, not in the business. So we really specifically talk about it as that, working on the business and not being involved day to day. So I think the first important thing is that whenever we do strategic planning, we get away and we work on the business. What do we hope to get out of it? So, a lot of companies look at strategic planning differently. For us, we kind of build a 1 year and a 3 year plan. We used to think to building 5 year plans, but honestly, the pace of change of business is so rapid that we've kind of given up on the 5 year plans. I think we have that discussion, but we really don't create a 5 year plan. So we talk about what's 5, 10, 15 look like down the road, but we don't formalize a plan for that far. So really it's ultimately about building that really solid 3 year plan and then having a 1 year plan that has milestones and steps to get to that 3 year plan. So that's kind of what we do. What we hope to get out of it is really a handful of strategic initiatives that we can focus on. So we try to limit those ideas and really boil it down to big rocks, big things that we can accomplish, but things that we feel pretty sure we can try to get accomplished in the upcoming year.
So the 1 year plan supports the 3 year vision, and then the strategic initiatives of those rocks are what is going to get you to meeting the goals of the 1 year plan. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So you develop a handful of strategic initiatives. Yeah.
Awesome. So my second question is, you say that you get out to work on the business, not in the business.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen you use outside facilitator for a number of years now. So can you talk to us about, why use an outside facilitator, and, what really the benefits of doing that are for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, it's expensive, at least in our case. It's kind of expensive, so you have to be committed to using an outside facilitator. But I think from our perspective, it's really priceless. And I'll tell you why. It used to be that I would try to run the strategic planning session. And, over 40 plus years of being in business, I've been involved in a number of them, and they're not probably a whole lot different than year after year. But the thing is that if you try to run the strategic planning session yourself, then you're probably going to get the goals that you want accomplished. Now, for some people, that might be the right answer, right? They may go like, hey, I have these 5 goals. I'm going to run the strategic planning session, and we're going to get my 5 goals accomplished because I'm running the meeting.
Why
But
is that? Because
but that doesn't really involve or engage the rest of the team, right?
So is that because the CEO is usually the best and the most influential, the best salesperson? So whatever he wants is pretty much what he's going to get, right?
That's kind of how it goes, right? Or the opposite happens. Or you sit back and you try to be such a good facilitator yourself and let everybody else talk that you miss your points of view, right? And so one or the other happens, I think. And so a great facilitator, first of all, keeps you on task, but secondly, keeps everybody engaged in the process. So everybody has an equal voice. And for us, it's kind of critical. We want a voice from production, and we want a voice from marketing and from sales and finance. And so we really want those. We want everybody buying in, and a facilitator will make sure you get there. And then, from our perspective, different facilitators use different processes, all to get to the same end goal. But once you find one that works the way you like it, you kind of will stick with it for a few years until maybe everybody gets bored of that process. But I can tell you that right now we're in year 4 of using the same facilitator, and he's phenomenal at getting us there and really getting us there quickly without spending a lot of our time just kind of bouncing all over the place. He's really great at taking and prioritizing things, getting things off in the parking lot where we don't have to talk about them right now, but we'll come back to them, and keeping on task. So, from our perspective, the facilitator is kind of the key aspect in any good strategic plan.
Yeah, it's a really important point I think you made about giving people an equal voice in the meeting. That's very difficult when you're trying to be a voice and you're also trying to facilitate at the same time. It's got to be hard. I think you're right. It's either one or the other. You're either going to dominate the conversation, or you're going to abdicate, the planning to your team, and ultimately not, play the kind of role that you really need to play as the leader of the organization.
And the other kind of key thing for us is, while we're on the, kind of the makeup of that of that strategic planning meeting, is that we'll also bring in an admin person to run notes. And so while our facilitator is whiteboarding and doing a great job of whiteboarding, we've got behind the scenes one of our admin really capturing every kind of note, and then we distribute those notes at the end of the day. We review them the next morning, so everything's kind of fresh. And so when we actually compile a set of notes post strategic planning meeting, they're really solid.
What a great idea!
Yeah.
And then you don't have to spend the time, everybody's engaged in the conversation, not
writing,
worried about taking notes. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get really practical here. Where do you have these meetings? Do you have them in the office? You have a beautiful boardroom.
We do, but we just we don't use that because the idea is to get out and get away and work on the business. So generally, we contract with a hotel. We don't go far. We'll go to Orlando, Tampa, something like that. So we'll contract with a hotel. We'll stay in the hotel. We keep everybody together through the whole process. So it's a little bit of added expense, but it's kind of a bit of a retreat / strategic planning session. So night times are good bonding times for us to spend, and we invite spouses to come and enjoy the time with us as well. So
nice. So you guys get together after the work day's over, blow off some steam, have some drinks, get some dinner together, that sort of thing. So do an
event together, do whatever. But we've done them off-site in just like a city club boardroom and stuff like that. We've used our attorneys' offices. We've used various different places from time to time because of expense. For us, we happen to feel like we get the best results when we go off-site to a nice hotel or something like that. Everybody enjoys themselves. Mm-hmm. You are putting in our case, about 3 days worth of pretty grueling effort.
It's nice. I can imagine too. Like the difference between, I don't know what the lawyer's office was like, but I imagine just an uptight setting versus a relaxed, environment at a hotel, I think that makes a big difference in the quality of the thoughts that come out of the meeting.
Right. Sure does, yeah.
Okay. Second kind of silly question is how long? Like how long do you? I mean, the way you do it may not be the way everybody does it, but what do you do? How long do you take to do your strategic planning?
So we always allot 2.5 days for AccuForm for strategic planning. We can generally get it done in 2 days. So we have some buffer in there if we need it. We have the facilitator still booked and with us. But 2 solid full days will probably generally do it for us for strategic planning. Now, keep in mind we're not generating a lot of strategic initiatives out of these things. We're trying to limit it down to a few key things that we can act on that'll be real impact makers, right? Something that's really going to move the needle.
Well, that was my next question is how many strategic initiatives do you hope to get out of these 2 days?
Yeah. So our goal is always 3. We shoot for 3, but oftentimes miss it. So I'd say more often than not we have 4.
Wow.
But we've never had more than 4, I don't think. And if there was a 5th one, it's kind of a non-financial one. It's going to be something either cultural or something that's probably not as, it's not necessarily going to move the needle like a financial strategic initiative.
Wow. So that's amazing because, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, that I'm going to go into strategic planning. I need to do like 20 things because I can just imagine. My list is probably a lot longer than that, but, that must be a challenge, narrowing down such important things that are, that you could be doing for the business to just 3 or 4.
Well, that's part of the benefit of working with a great facilitator. So I would say when we go through, for us the process is such that at some point we'll end up with 20 or 30 initiatives out there on the board that are whiteboarded. But the facilitator is going to do a good job of saying, well, which ones of these things are really the same thing? So at the end of the day, a strategic initiative might be grow sales by X, but you may have 12 things over on your whiteboard that really are all about growing sales. Maybe they're even new products or whatever, but at the end of the day, you're creating them to grow sales. So we have strategic initiatives and then tasks underneath that, and there may be multiple tasks or action items that need to happen in order to get that one main strategic initiative. So that's kind of the secret sauce, right? Like, how can if I had to sit down and review 20 or 30 things all the time, it might be too many things to do. So how can you bundle them into a couple of key things that are going to really move the needle? Ultimately, grow sales, reduce costs, right? Increase profit.
I love it. It's it's important because like you said, when you're in the business, there's so many things going on. There's there's just like our plates are already overflowing, and it's important as a leadership team to have a very clear focus.
Right.
And I guess if you can easily recite, hey, what are the 3 or 4 biggest things that we're going to do this year, then that will foster better unity and better traction for the vision, and everybody can buy into it and communicate it easily.
Yeah.
So, I guess another kind of generalized question here is, we talked about what you want to get out of the strategic planning. We talked about where you go and using a facilitator. Can you tell us a little bit about the agenda? I don't want to give away too much of whatever your secrets are of how you get to where you want to go, but what does that agenda look like, and what do you spend your time talking about?
So we will, first of all, I maybe have to back that up and say that there's a lot of homework that goes into this thing beforehand, right? So the one thing we do is that each member of our leadership team is assigned a task of completing a questionnaire, and then that questionnaire is sent to our facilitator, and so this is all done well in advance of meeting. And then, so one of the things that we actually begin with is going through the questionnaire as a group. So, kind of, here's the first question, where do you think we'll be in 3 years, or where do you think, what's the market going to look like, and we do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats analysis. And we spent a good bit of time reviewing all that stuff, especially the SWOT analysis. So that changes, oddly enough, from year to year. And so we'll spend a lot of time on that. And at the end of the day, most of our strategic plans are built out of the opportunity side of that 4-box quadrant, right? Mm-hmm. So, you certainly want to cover threats, and you certainly want to get rid of your weaknesses or strengthen your weaknesses. But at the end of the day, the opportunities is really where you spend most of your time. So we'll go through a ton of that, and it's kind of how our process begins. And from opportunities, we end up with a bunch of ideas, and then we'll hash those out. And then, there's lunch breaks in there. We're taking a good long 1.5-hour lunch break. That'll let people not only eat and get outside. We get them outside to enjoy the nice, fresh Florida air, and then get them back in. They've got a little time to check their email, so they're not worried about that, because we don't have any open computers while we're going through this process. No phones. We try to stay focused on the process, and then when we get to the end of the day, it's a good review, and then we decide how are we doing and what do we want to accomplish tomorrow, and then kind of go through the same thing until we've got a button down strategic plan. We know what it looks like year in and year out.
So if I'm understanding correctly, and by the way, I used to be in your strategic planning meetings, so I kind of know, but you haven't been there for a few years. But, it sounds like what you're doing is you're collecting responses from your leadership team. You're going over those responses during the time together. Mm-hmm. And you're pulling out, you're kind of grouping things that are like together, and you're saying, well, all you guys said this, so that's a sales-related topic, or, here's some weaknesses that are, that we try to identify threads or common themes, right, through everybody's responses, and then you discuss them together.
Right.
And you try to identify at some point, I would assume, a priority level on these things. How do you decide which of these things that you've identified are the most important? How do they get elevated to a strategic initiative?
Again, really through the use of the facilitator, but what Vic's doing, our facilitator, is he's going through those things and getting group buy-in to decide which ones are the most important things. And really, at the end of the day, for us, generally, not always, but generally, the most important things are the ones that move the needle the most, right? And that's like, how do you affect the bottom line? Is it in sales, or... So some years you may decide sales is the cure. We need more sales. And other years you may decide, hey, operational efficiency is the cure. We need operational efficiency. Because maybe you've got too much sales and you need efficiency, or vice versa. So, every year is a new challenge, and you never really know exactly where it's going to go. I think probably most of our leadership team goes into it thinking, hey, these are the things I want to ultimately happen. And it becomes a bit of a lobbying effort for people to get to where they want to get to make sure that their ideas or their focus gets attention.
Awesome. So, with that being said, we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about leadership. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about the role of the leadership team in strategic planning and post-meeting. What does that look like? So, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We were made for this industry. We've been learning, listening, and adapting for over 15 years. But I feel like we've only just begun. From the beginning, our mission was to help industrial suppliers grow their business. Today, the world is spinning faster than ever before, and we refuse to slow down because nothing less than the future is at stake. For many of our clients, we are the bridge between yesterday and tomorrow. helping them seize the moment today. You know, they say tigers starve last. Are you hungry? Are you playing offense, attacking the market and driving change? Or are you retreating to the boardroom, trying to figure out how to survive? Everything we do is about building relationships and brands that stand the test of time. So yeah, we're crazy passionate about helping you transform your business. That's our legacy. What's yours?
When ordinary signage won't do, armor up with a protection that's powerful enough to survive any environment. Duck Armor by Accuform. Designed to protect against scratches, scrapes, and impacts. Built to endure damaging chemical washing, graffiti resistant, and able to withstand UV yellowing or fading, plus cold weather cracking. Duck Armor is the original liquid laminate coating, pioneered by Accuform. Don't fall for a decoy.
Huh?
Get Duck Armor. We don't send strongmen into battle without armor. Get the sign coating you know will last against harsh abrasions, tough chemicals, taggers, and extreme environments. Duck Armor is tough enough for scratches, scrapes, impacts, weather, washing, sun, graffiti, and... What are you doing?
Oh, I was just gonna...
What? No. Why would you do that? Like all liquid laminate signs, Duck Armor's ultra-hard surface cleans easily, like water off a duck's back, and it withstands tough conditions, keeping your sign and message clear. But only Duck Armor can protect more than your signs, with over 90,000 products armed and ready. Not like that. Don't pay for protective coating on cheap sign material. Duck Armor gives you superior coating on premium signs at no extra cost. All the protection without the bill. Your facility deserves the best protection on the best signs. Durable and resilient. Light as a feather. Duck Armor has you covered.
Welcome back. We've been having a great conversation so far about strategic planning, and I've been picking Dad's brain about what his team does when they get together and do their planning for the year. And we learned a lot about the importance of a facilitator. I think that came up over and over again. It sounds like you just can't do this without a facilitator.
You can, but it's a lot easier with.
Yeah.
Highly recommended it.
So, just saying. You might want to look into that. I'm sure he can give you a recommendation. I don't know if it's if your guy's too local, but maybe we can share that information in the show notes if you're interested.
Sure.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. It's related, obviously, but you say that you get together with your leadership team, and I want to explore like what a leadership team looks like for you, and kind of how you got to where you're at on the way you've structured your leadership team. I think no matter where you are, what size your company is, even if it's if it's you and your spouse and you're running the business together and you're working out of the garage, you're the leadership team, right? And strategic planning is done at the dinner table. And as you start to scale and grow your business, you start to bring on some more high-level people who help you run the business, and maybe you start to include them in some of your planning, right? Mm-hmm. And eventually you might think about putting together a team with the specific role of guiding the organization and running the day-to-day management. Mm-hmm. So, that's where you are now. Yeah. So how did you end up structuring your current leadership team?
So, yeah, our leadership team has evolved definitely over the years. And one of the things that's happened is that we've tried to cover many aspects of the business. So we try to have a voice on our leadership team from production, and a voice from inside sales, and a voice from outside sales, marketing, finance. So, pretty much the key structured departments of our organization are represented on our leadership team. And then, of course, my brother and I, who are the owners of the company. So the kind of key thing for us is that on our leadership team, we meet every month. So we have a we're very, very diligent about meeting every month. We never miss. Even if somebody's out of town, they dial in. We have a video conferencing system in our conference room, so people that are out of town can dial in and be part of it. Our meetings only last generally 2.5 to 3 hours, and so from our perspective, it's really key that we have these people involved, and I think they like being involved because they have a voice in how the company's being run, and they have a say in how the company's being run. Now, ultimately, I think everybody knows in the leadership team meeting that there's really only 2 votes that count. Like, we'll do a vote, but I hate to say that, but there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are watching this, and they probably are in the same boat, right? So at the end of the day, there's really 2 votes. It's Dave's vote and my vote that matter the most, but we do an exceptional job of making sure we're all together on the same page. And Dave and I just, unless it's something we're completely passionate about, like we haven't been able to convince them for some reason that this is a good idea, I don't really ever recall a time when we've outvoted our leadership team. So, so it's kind of different in that perspective, to have a leadership team. And, I spent a lot of time in different peer groups, and we talk a lot about leadership groups, and we talk a lot about strategic planning. So these are pretty common topics amongst people. And there's all kinds of leadership teams that can be created. There's the one like we have where it's, it's basically, it's just leadership and there's no fiduciary responsibility. And then there are sort of actual boards that are set up where people bring in outside board members. So you might bring in a banker or another manufacturer, another distributor, in a non-competing business, and they might sit on your board and provide some advice for you. And then there are, of course, actual boards where you have fiduciary board responsibility, and those boards help make the decisions about how the company is going to be run. So, and there's probably all kinds of other iterations of that. That's just some of the most popular styles of ones that are out there.
Yeah, and of course there's, even for larger companies, that they may not even have a leadership team, right? They may have, their leadership team may be just the owners of the business. If it's a partnership, they may just get together and so what you've chosen not to do that, even though you could have. I mean, you and Dave could have gotten together on a monthly basis and just said, here's where we're going and here's what we need to do. Are we in alignment? Good, let's go.
Yeah.
We'll just give everybody the orders. But you've chosen to bring in heads of departments and key leadership members, and you've done that, and from what I understand, you've done that because you've wanted them to completely buy in to your vision. You even though you have the right, it's your business to just give them the marching orders, you don't want to do that. You want them to completely believe in the vision and the direction of the organization.
Well, not only do I want them to believe in it, but I want them to formulate the vision, right? So when they formulate it, then I think we're all going to buy in better. And really, look, every business's biggest problem is communication. I don't care how big you are or how small you are, communication is your biggest problem. So when you have a full-on leadership team and you're meeting every month, and then circling back to the strategic initiative thing, so we review the strategic initiative every single month in our leadership team. So, and people are held accountable to that strategic vision. So, or that strategic plan rather. So, so it's important to get together, right? Because that's how we know if we're on task. One thing that I can't stand, that drives me nuts, is that companies will go away and create a beautiful strategic plan. They'll write it all up. They'll put it in a book. They've got a binder, and they hand it out to all the members that were in the plan, and then they take that binder and stick it on the bookshelf, and then they never look back at it again until next year. And that's just dumb, right? Like, how can you do that? So for us, our strategic plan is in front of us every single day in form of a desk mat that's on our desk that you actually created the original one of, and we've reiterated it every time. And then we review that every single month. So it's there every day, every month, and it's always talked about.
And it's always staring you in the face.
Always staring you in the face. And we go along, by the way, and we check off tasks and action items that need to be done. And it's pretty clear and easy to see the ones that aren't done yet.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that, what you said is pretty powerful because, people, they'll give you a certain level of effort, if they believe in your vision.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's their vision, they'll give you an entirely different level of execution.
Sure.
And I think that is the biggest takeaway for having or argument for having a leadership team comprised of people who are running the business.
Mm-hmm.
As they are the ones who created it, they believed in it, and they have to ultimately execute it.
Right. And understand that our strategic plan ultimately goes towards creation of our budget, and then they're also being held accountable for the budget, right? So the two really do mesh hand in hand, and you have to have one in order to create the other. So we begin with a top-line strategic plan, and then understand what our goals are, and then we create a budget that matches what that should look like, and then the goal is to make that happen through all the action items that are on there.
You keep using this strange word, accountability. Not sure I follow. What does that look like? I mean, I think that's, if we're honest with each other, that's probably one of the hardest things about running a business, mm-hmm. is holding people accountable. Whether you're holding sales accountable to a quota, or you're holding your operation team accountable to, operating within a budget. This is a real struggle for a lot of entrepreneurs out there and owners. How does accountability look for you? Like, what does that mean?
Well, for us, accountability means that that the people that have been assigned the tasks took them seriously, and that they made them a part of their everyday job, not just said, "Hey, I'll talk about it once a month." That they lived out the actual action items in there and got them accomplished. And I think the accountability comes from the peer side, not from myself or Dave.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're sitting in that leadership team meeting, there's 10 people, and you haven't checked the box, and it's coming up on October, and you're running out of time, then it's your turn to either ask for help, or say, "Hey, I've got this. It'll be done, and here's when it'll be done," or basically throw up your arms and say, "Hey, there's no way I'm going to get this done." And sometimes a success is that we'll take it off the board if it didn't impact the bottom line in the budget. So it's possible to do that, but we try to hold each other accountable to getting these things done. And sometimes it's hard to when you're sitting in November doing your strategic planning, you don't exactly know what's going to happen next October. So things may change, right. And it may become an irrelevant action item, or market forces might have deemed it to be where we had to switch gears. So, yeah.
I think that's a really great point. We create these plans, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying about looking 3 years out in the future. Well, things move so fast, even looking a year out in the future is difficult. Mm-hmm. And things are constantly evolving in our businesses, and we have to be able to be flexible enough and have the humility to say, maybe this isn't the right direction anymore. Maybe this was something that at the time when we sat down and we built this out, that this was the right thing to do, but now we need to change it to this.
Right.
And
could be.
I think that could ultimately save a lot of headache. But when you talk about accountability, you talk about peer accountability. I think it's really fascinating because it's one of those things where if you are talking about the strategic plan every week and not just going over the day-to-day operations, what I feel like a lot of leadership teams probably get sucked into is, Hey, Sally from HR is leaving, and we got to fill that spot, and we got to our sales team they're struggling right now, and they get caught up in this whirlwind of the day-to-day operations, and they never, and then they go to the strategic plan, and they're like, you get 5 minutes before the end of the meeting, ... 5 minutes. That's it.
Right.
I don't know what your monthly meetings are like, but I would assume that a good portion of them are talking about the strategic plan and helping solve each other's roadblocks, and helping us get to the finish line.
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, as far as all that other stuff, we resolve all that by having everybody submit a departmental update about a week before we meet for our monthly leadership team meeting. So every department manager submits a departmental update. They can make it as long as they want. It's their novel. But everybody reads it before we get into the leadership team. So one of our action items on our leadership team is going to be, hey, does anybody have any questions for anybody on their departmental updates? And it might be something like, hey, Matt, I saw on there that you guys recently hired 2 more people. What are they going to be doing? Or if you didn't spell that out, right? So hopefully you spelled that out so it was perfectly clear. Mm-hmm. Or did you have that budgeted? Or whatever. So all that stuff kind of gets resolved and done quickly, and then we stay focused on the big objectives, right? Which is stay on the task of the strategic plan.
I love that idea. I am taking that home with me tonight.
Good takeaway.
Yeah, that is. I think that's fantastic because I'm guilty of that myself. I think we got so much going on. It's important just to have regular updates from your team leads, and then that way, because you don't have to address everything. You can just address the things that are the most important. Really good use of your time. I think that's what discourages so many people. And I talked about this when we had Renee Boer on, the EOS implementation consultant, and he talked about the idea of having a really airtight leadership team agenda. Mm-hmm. Because those meetings can become exasperating for leadership members, right? Because it's always dealing with, the fire instead of talking about the most important issues affecting the team. So it's really great takeaway. So as we're kind of wrapping this up, Dad, I'm going to ask you this because, I'm asking this really for me, by the way. But if anybody else cares to take away some of this knowledge, they're more than welcome to. But what are some of the biggest pitfalls that you see young leadership teams doing, or what are some pitfalls that they can avoid around this topic of strategic planning? So, look back in the past.
Yep.
I'm sure the leadership team didn't always run as smoothly as it does now. What are some things that we could avoid?
So the one thing, I think there's a bunch of things you can avoid. Probably the biggest one you can avoid is is getting caught up in a BHAG. That you've heard that term probably, right? So BHAG, big hairy audacious goal, right? So a lot of times you're sitting around talking, you're thinking strategically. You're going off, we're off in the distance. Holy cow, wouldn't it be cool if X happened, right?
That's where I love to live.
Yeah, it'd be awesome, but and you go like, oh my gosh, we'd be like, boom, we'd be 4 times as big if that happened, and you get off on this, big hairy audacious goal, and often, what I see young leadership teams doing is getting wrapped up in those big goals, and that are really, either going to take an enormous amount of luck or finance that probably isn't available, or something's going to have to happen to be like, every once in a while you might find that thing. But odds are that you're going to get wrapped up in that. And then the other thing I'd say, the other big mistake I see is making your goals too sales focused. So a lot of times people just think it's all about sales. Sales will cure all evils and all that stuff. But really realize that you're strategically planning. You only own a business for one reason, and that's because you ultimately want to return a return on investment to the shareholders. So make sure that those goals, that strategic planning that you're doing, is really focusing on the bottom line. look at the products. What products do we sell that we make the most gross profit margin on? What products do we sell that really are sucking the life out of our company? What are the things what customers are great customers and what customers are bad customers? And looking at all those things, and so there's so much to look at when you go into strategic planning. Again, benefit of, if you can afford it, having a facilitator to help you kind of keep that stuff all on task. But I'd say that the biggest pitfall most people do is they don't look at where's the big gain going to come from in this thing, right? Because you can grow your sales and not grow your profit margin, and I don't know. Sometimes that might be a success, sometimes it's not. You can do it for a little while, but
Right.
at the end of the day, you really need to grow both parts of the business, probably.
That's a really great tip. I was saying, especially if you are young, like we are, for example, you're focused so much on growth that it's a great reminder, why we're doing this whole thing. Don't get off on some fairy tale fantasy world.
Right.
We need to stay focused on the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, what would you say to any owners out there who, they're running a pretty successful business, but they haven't put together this leadership team? They don't have people invested in the vision because they haven't necessarily brought those folks together. What would you say to somebody who's in that position?
Well, I guess if they haven't done it by now, I'm guessing they don't want to do it. Or maybe they just don't know about it. So I guess the first thing I would do is say, hey, go out and ask some people that have that kind of a leadership team, what do you get out of it and why do you have it? And, what do you think it would do for me? If after digging into it and having a few conversations with some other owners, they felt like, hey, this is kind of a cool idea. This might be the right thing. Then I think they need to pick the right people to go on that leadership team. And here's the big challenge for you, by the way. I'd say this to you if you're creating a leadership team. It's easy to put people on it, but it's really hard to take them off of your leadership team. So my advice would be go slow. Don't just go around and go, hey, you, come on in the boardroom, we're all a leadership team, right? Go slow. Bring them on one at a time or something like that. And make sure you got a good fit. Because remember, you're going to spend a lot of time with your leadership team. You want to make sure it's people you like and you can be around and you enjoy being in their company. And so make sure that they're a good fit as you begin to add people.
Personality-wise.
It's very hard to take somebody off the leadership team.
Right.
So.
I think that's
rotate it.
That's a really good. I mean, that's something we didn't even talk about, but just the chemistry of the team is really important. Making sure that our personalities work well together, and nobody feels like they're the black sheep or something like that.
Right.
So
For real. The other cool thing, is that we have so not only do we have a leadership team, but we have a next level leadership team. So we have kind of that next generation or next level below our leadership team that meet and we actually call them next gen leadership team. And so they actually meet and have strategic initiatives of their own that we can accomplish. So I think, it's kind of a bench strength thing, right? So we're building bench strength there so that if we get a gap in our leadership team, we can suck them in, and they know the process. They run through the exact same process we run through every month. So.
Fantastic. Wow, what a wealth of great wisdom here, guys, that we shared on the show today. And man, that was a fun conversation. I'm sure we could just keep on going forever, but we'll stop it at that. Invite you guys to learn more by checking out the show notes. We'll share some resources there on the website, the takeoverpodcast.com. And if you guys are interested in picking Wayne's brain, he's offered up his inbox to you. You can email him at wayne.johnson@accuform.com, or you can call in the AccuForm main line, and if he's available, I'm sure he'd be happy to take your call. So, Dad, thanks again for coming on the show. It was a great episode, and look forward to seeing you back here next month.
You bet. Thanks, Matt. Good job.
See you guys.